at 6 o'clock, so we should start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome, everybody. I think I know everybody here, so
Oh, lucky you.
so hopefully you know who I am, as well. The only person I don't. Bruce's wife. Nice. Very nice. Nice to meet you. So really, this is about you guys and questions you have, statements. I'm here to listen to anything you have to say, and if I have anything I can respond with, I will. Same with Joe.
Yep.
It's a little bit different format in that we had some requests that more board members could be involved with these meetings. The only issue is that we have quorums that have happened, so you'll notice there's no other board members in the room today. So we have 2 of us here, and basically, moving forward, the board members all have the opportunity. It's kind of in a rotation that if they want to be at this listening session, they absolutely can. So that's Joe was first up in the rotation. So that's how that all came about. So I'll just open it up to you. You can hit any topic is fair game. Todd's going to take notes, and if we need to pull anything up on the screen, he'll take care of doing that. But otherwise, it's your floor.
I'm Nyla Fry, 404 East Verlaine Avenue. And my question is, can the village have a meeting pertaining to Water Tower Park, Sledding Hill, to get citizen comments and ideas? It may not only answer questions, but provide perspectives not in the discussion now.
Okay? So your question is, can
we
citizens
have
input on what's going to happen in there?
Yes, can we have a community meeting and have that discussion so you can get comments and ideas? And I'd really like to see that settled before they do very much development, because I don't want them to develop something and then say, oops, we couldn't do this because we've already developed there.
Okay, so my answer is absolutely. That's still part of the process that we're going to be going through. Part of the land, as you know, is on village property. Part of the land is on, I think it's currently the Breinig property that will be Viridian's property. So in our discussions, I have to be careful what I say because things that are in closed session I can't talk about. One of the, you heard what we put out there for a board, which was that was going to be required, that we have the road. The village is going to pay for 25% of it, even though half of it's technically in our property. We have to have that sledding hill will remain.
Okay.
So there'll be input from the community before that takes place. We'll all be discussing that when the time is appropriate.
I have an additional question. What has determined the need for that road to go through? I know it's traffic, but is there any other reason that road needs to go through? Because I see Schumacher as being the big traffic, route.
Yeah, so I can't speak for the other board members. They would have to speak for themselves. You can maybe weigh in on your opinion on this one as well. My view is that the corner where Quick Trip is, in between Main and Madison Street Apartments and the new Hupke Building Lamp House, that particular intersection, all the traffic in that zone right now is funneled onto that road to come out to leave the village, unless people go to the north at this point, which some do, to bypass. Division Street would be an easy route for them to come out, and they'd be on the outskirts up there right now, coming down Division, from that whole area to the back.
Okay, thank you.
And that would relieve, we're hoping that's going to relieve the congestion potentials that may remain in that intersection at Main and Madison. So
I would agree with that. The other thing that I would add, is it Capitol? There's a little stub up there right now. And if we don't do Division, I think Capitol is going to become a much heavier traveled road. And not necessarily a good or bad one way or the other, but I think maintaining those, not really arterial streets, but the heavier traveled, more direct routes is a better approach, I think.
the other thing, I mean, when you think back or to that spot too, Madison Street has Prairie Elementary School. So in the morning hours when kids are coming to school, so on and so forth, and you have traffic that's trying to get down Madison as well, it's very busy on that street. So if we can get them onto Division to come out, that's also a positive, that we don't have as many cars in front of Prairie.
One additional question. So it's been decided the road is going to go through. Why wasn't there a public hearing about this so that the public could weigh in on it?
I believe we went through the process with the public hearing as we discussed that road.
Well, it wasn't there wasn't a public hearing that said possibility of closing or putting the road through. It just said, you know, whatever it said. It didn't tell people that you were actually looking at putting the road through.
My understanding is that it was, Nyla.
Okay.
Well,
That was part of the public.
You know,
As part of the whole process.
to build a
we wrote
road
that.
itself isn't, there's no statutory requirement for a public hearing to build a road or modify a park. But there were public hearings as required for, I forget specifically the details of this project, you know, what specific aspect of it required the public hearing before the Plan Commission. But those were held, and the discussion about the road was a part of that conversation. I don't know if that relates to, this might be the zoning, might be the zoning upon annexation. But at least I heard that the road issue brought up at those meetings.
Correct. So is there anything wrong with a municipality going above and beyond statutory requirements for meetings?
Nope, we just can't go below.
Okay, thank you.
I would, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would suspect when we get to the more details of how that all plays out and whatever the final plat is going to be for that particular section, another public hearing around that, or?
I don't think a plat is what is a public hearing
Is the
requirement.
zoning piece?
I believe it's zoning.
Okay.
So if there's other elements of the general development plan that have to be modified, or I'm doing a little bit of stabbing in the dark here.
Sure.
I wish Kevin was flanking me to discuss it. But as Chris said, the way in which that road is going to be finalized and completed is going to be a matter for a good deal more discussion.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to say that its trajectory and the design is finalized is not where we're at. Except the board that has weighed in that they'd like to see it connected and they like to see the sledding hills saved. So however we achieve both of those circumstances, at least from what I've heard from the board, would satisfy them.
Other questions? Now you're doing a great job, but we'll try to give
No,
everybody
you
an
answered my
opportunity.
questions, thank you.
I'll ask a straightforward question. On the closed session, and I'm not asking for any details what happened in the closed session, so you don't have to frame me on that part. Question that has raised some curiosity, though, is what is the justification that there wasn't any public deliberation of the non-negotiating portion of that? When you guys came out of closed session, it went straight to a vote with literally no commentary whatsoever. And I think a lot of people that were in attendance were a little surprised by that. I'm not talking about the developer, obviously the developer was a bit surprised, but for those of us that were not part of the transaction, you know, what's the village's kind of justification behind that to not have any sort of public deliberation on the portion that's not about
I don't even want to turn it off.
bargaining and negotiating strategy?
All right, not that I'm distracted, but I got distracted.
I did too.
I want to make sure that I answer.
I barely
the
finished my question there.
So let's just redo the
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
Just
so,
make sure everybody's
okay,
good with it.
all right, so,
What do you mean?
okay, so with the ending of with the Viridian discussion that went to closed session to discuss the annexation agreement.
Yes.
And, you know, I understand that you went to closed session to work out your bargaining strategy for that, as is allowed under Wisconsin state law. My question is, why was there no public deliberation after the bargaining was established of consideration of it? So you guys established that you wanted 25-75 on division, and you wanted 100% Schumacher on them. Where was the public discussion then after you set your negotiating strategy, as the law would, you know, an interpretation would seem to indicate should occur?
So, and Joe, of course, you can weigh in on this. 3 of the 4 were already settled that we had discussed. I think Brian, our attorney, said that. When it came to the annexation part of it, That's the opportunity we have for negotiation still. So the items that we discussed in closed session were negotiating spots.
Right.
As you said, the 75-25. They were at 50-50, they were at what they had. So we, in our discussions, you know what we said, based on the motion, those are where we came in at the board in discussing those particular points.
So there's no concern under open meetings rules that there was a violation based off of the fact that you guys didn't openly discuss then the finalized motion in public?
They didn't take a vote in closed
We didn't
session.
take
I'm not
vote.
saying that you took a vote in closed session. You established your negotiating strategy in closed session with the 25-75.
So the important thing to understand with that is our attorney is with us, and our attorney is guiding us as we're going through that process. So we had made our decisions on where we were at with the negotiation.
Right.
So all the discussion that was in there was revolving around those pieces. When he stated what those were, that was our discussion, that was it. So anything that he stated was what our discussion was about. That's where our negotiating point is. Why we couldn't discuss those things, it would be similar to anybody here going to buy a vehicle and you telling the dealer, I could go down to this, or I would be willing to pay this, but I'd really like to be here. All right? They're going to take the deal that's best for them. We want, as we're talking about those things, to get the best deal for our village. And that's where we were at and what we proposed to them. Now, will they accept that or not? Don't know. But
And I think that's kind of part of what's missing here. Just because that's what we brought forth does not mean that that is the end. There is still discussion between Veridian and the village and...
correct. They would have to come back to us now with something which will be public.
And as
They'll
long
have
as
to come
it's...
back in front of us.
So what you're saying is there is an intent to have future public deliberations over this,
If they come
assuming the
back.
developer asks for it.
Assuming they
If
would,
they
yes.
accept the terms, the annexation agreement is done.
Okay.
Yeah, if they're within what we specified.
Okay. And I kind of don't really buy in the attorney portion of it because of the law. The individual trustees are liable under the law. It's not your staff. So that's kind of where I'm saying, asking, is there a concern in that front that there isn't a public deliberation? Again, I'm not asking you to publicly deliberate your bargaining strategy. We don't need to, phrase I've used way too much this week, we don't need to see how the sausage is made when it comes to your deliberation and how you got to the 75-25. That's not what we're asking on the public side. We're just asking, what's the, usually, when it's not closed session, the public gets a look at from you guys of saying like, okay, what's the potential impact of taking steps X, Y, and Z going to be on the project? That's usually pretty public as long as there's not finances involved like this was. I get that. So that's what we're kind of asking, like what is the determination from the village? And maybe this is just a question for the village attorney, but what's the justification to not talk about that portion of it? Not the portion where you got to the 25-75, but the impact of doing that, because, for this project in specifically, and again, I have no one way or the other, I'm not a landowner over there, so it doesn't impact me. But from looking at how the village is trying to address attainable housing, a lot of people had a lot of interest in this, probably outside developers have interest to see how the village treats a developer that's not building, a Kilkenny or a Savannah or I live Southbridge type neighborhood, but, trying to build a more dense. So they're saying, okay, we don't need to see the village's negotiating strategy, that's their private part, but does the village board consider at a public level, if they take these steps, what that impact could have, on similar projects, future projects? That's where I'm coming from with this. I'm really not interested in how you guys got to the 25-75 because that is your own private prerogative. So,
I think it does sound like a legal question, so I guess what I would ask, if you could maybe email me maybe the statute that you're concerned about, and I'll work with the village attorney to get an answer for you. So I think it's putting these guys in a difficult position to weigh in on a matter of legality that you're bringing up without them being supported by their attorney here in this meeting.
and I understand that.
Yeah.
But
I'm happy to help try and get the
I
answer.
I did talk with the village attorney about that on the day of when we were discussing other matters, and, I understood his answer, but again, I get a lot of answers from staff. I can't vote for you guys. I can vote for these guys. So I'm always more interested in what my elected official feels about this, since they're the ones that are held liable on the statute versus, you know, you or Kevin or anybody else that's on staff. So
I guess what I would say that you do need to appreciate is what their obligations are when they're under a closed session scenario with their fellow board members. So I don't think they can perhaps fully satisfy your answer today.
I didn't expect that. I was
Yeah.
just wanted to see if there was any opining from them on that side of it. I mean, obviously, the way the law works, unless somebody votes no at the time of going into closed session, the liability holds under the statute. So that's kind of why I just would like to hear that in public. There have been people in public who, in public forum, who said, maybe you file an open meetings complaint because you feel that that part should have been deliberated in public. I'm not trying to trap anybody in this type of question. It's just more of, it helps to hear that justification, to hear that, because what we see in the public when we attend those meetings is we sit there for 30 minutes waiting for everybody to come back, and then it's, here's the new motion, here's the vote, we're done, and everybody's looking around like, wait a minute, I thought we were going to hear why they got, why they decided to do this, or what the impact would be of doing this. That's kind of where.
I think with an open negotiation still going on, it becomes risky to be putting those sorts of things out there. So yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword for us.
And I appreciate even hearing that it's still in the open negotiation, because there's probably a lot of people who walked out of that meeting, that have no idea that it's still open. They might think it's done, and that this is all the village is going to offer, and that it's take it or leave it type of a situation. And ultimately that may be what it is, but there's no way for the public to know that coming out of the meeting, that that's what happened. So I assure you, there's probably a few people who thought that's what happened.
So potentially, maybe more process sharing or something. In there, just
An explanation.
Yeah, so that people
amidst the
understand
motion.
what's going on with that. I think that would at least improve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree, because the Tribune article, which is in the paper tomorrow, basically implies that it's done,
Yeah.
which even further spreads the confusion.
Yep.
And to be clear, and this is what we perhaps could have said at the meeting, here's our terms. If Veridian accepts them as they are, the agreement is done. In any negotiating session, the other party can return with a counteroffer, if you want to call it that. That's possible in this case as well, at which point the board goes back into another meeting, into another closed session, and considers the terms of the response, which would be public, so Veridian's counter proposal would be something that the public would see.
Right.
Or they would actually perhaps even present at a public meeting. I don't know how that would play out. But at which point the board goes and does their, figure it out. So I understand that explanation point and how that it could have helped the public.
I mean, you could definitely say there is precedence for the public part of the plan. I mean, a lot of people would say that's what happened with the Hy-Vee Forward and Festival project, where one of them just came out in public and said, yeah, we're not doing it anymore. And that was that. And then the other side was left standing there going, well, I guess we don't need to.
As were we.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, there is definitely precedent for it, so I get it. And I apologize, everybody, for that deeply boring legalese question.
You don't have to apologize for anything.
It's over.
But there was a lot more to the Hy-Vee than just what you just said. I mean, that was a
I
lot.
wasn't trying to, I was literally like pulling like 1% of that
Good.
conversation.
You simplified it, and that's fine. I'm good with that too. But there was a lot to that deal as we went through it.
It was just the easiest one I could think of at the moment.
Between that and festival, you had a lot of things going
Yes.
in moving parts there, and worked very well for us. So
It did.
that's a good thing. Other topics? Bruce?
So as you, we live on at 942 Lexington Way. Behind our property is property owned by the quarry. I assume you've heard about the quarry, the intent to expand the quarry to fill the entire field behind our property.
The quarry is in Westport.
The quarry's in Westport.
As a matter of fact, I heard from it from my father, who lives at the top of Skyview. So yes, I have heard
so
about this.
you're aware of that.
Yes.
And we were told that there's no permit needed because it's a continuing prior existing use. and I don't have a lot of grounds to dispute that. And there it is. I think the obvious point is now that they filed their reclamation plan to quarry on the entire 37-acre green space, or 33 acres, what it is that everybody along that area, our property is, I mean, I think our property's already decreased in value simply by the filing of that reclamation plan. The closer that that quarrying gets to our property, our values are going to continue to go down. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And I guess my question is, where do we stand with the village on our property assessments? Are we going to have to every year go to the board of review and say, you know, I think and I don't have proof of exactly what it is. We don't have comparables because nobody sold up there. But 5 years ago or whatever, we had our assessments raised because we were bordering on this wonderful rural view. Well, the wonderful rural view, I don't think it's now worth anything because it's obviously going to be turned into a quarry. And I guess I'm wondering what is the village going to do about assessing that property as that property goes down in value? Because it's going to.
It's a good question.
Thank you.
I don't have an answer for you right this second within it. Like I said,
No, I didn't expect you to.
I've heard of this. They have every right to do what they're doing based
Apparently.
on what they've presented. And I don't know how long that's going to be in that state.
Nor do we.
And I don't know if, I haven't had any conversations
Not for some
with
time.
regard to that, what their plan is for when they close it then, once it's done.
I can get an update.
Or how
Well,
long they
there's a
anticipate. I don't know the
hearing,
answer to
there's a
that.
hearing on the reclamation plan at the end of this month. And whether that we can't testify as to anything. And I don't know what they're actually going to tell us. I don't know if we'll hear about a timeline or not. I don't know. But I mean, but obviously the completed plan is that apparently, since it's all included in the reclamation plan, is to quarry the entire area.
Yeah, and I don't know what the plan is for after that. What they're gonna, if they're gonna,
I think it's, they
Cap
say
it.
return it to farmland is what it says. That's what the Dade County guy told me.
so that would be a,
But when, I don't know. But in the meantime, I mean, while that's going on, I mean, is my basic point. It's not like, well, your property will go back to what it was when we're done. I mean, that doesn't obviously,
And
answer the question.
yeah.
I think it's a long-term gravel pit. It's not just going to be
A few years.
mined out in a few years.
Yeah, I don't
mean,
think
we're
it's a couple of
talking
years.
25 years maybe.
Yeah, that's just a guess. We don't know. So, but like I say, I mean, they're over there now. I assume they're going to start over there. But as they get closer, it's only going to have more and more of an effect.
That would be something we should probably direct to our assessor to ask that question.
I would think it would be certainly within your rights and probably a useful thing to do to challenge that on a yearly basis. I understand why you wouldn't want to have to do that.
Yeah, and I feel like we're as a class, we're all in the same boat. I shouldn't have to go up there, and my neighbor shouldn't have to go up there, and everybody that got, within 300 feet got notice of this thing. I mean, I think we're right on the border, so I think it affects us more. But there's an awful lot of homeowners, and this is affecting a significant part of the village property. And I think the village needs to acknowledge that, there is going to be that decline in value there.
Okay.
And I really don't feel like we should have to just turn around and keep banging our head against the wall. We've gotten this thing that we didn't know was coming, which is bad enough. But I would at least like to see the village, acknowledge that we have gotten this thing, and it's not to our benefit.
Okay. I agree.
Thank you.
And I have a question. The village, it seems to me, I remember, had to deal with a gravel pit on the south side of town that was within the village. I think in one of the Tierney developments over there.
Is this where
I think that's what it was
the
doing.
Parade of Homes is, up in that area where he took the hill
I think
down?
that's what was, took the hill down and did the basement blasting
Yeah.
in Kilkenny.
Where the Parade of Homes was this past year, that was a hill that they brought down, that was rock.
And my question is, because the pit is in the town of Westport and we're in the village of Wanakee, when that happened, because it was all within Wanakee, did the village do any monitoring of the blasting that went on over there?
We did, well, the village didn't, but we required the developer to do so. So he had monitors on the adjoining properties at the top of the hill. Was that Winston, where does Steve live? Kraus. Up at the end of those town, a couple of the town roads up there.
Okay. Oh, the part that's on the backside, you're
Yep.
talking.
Yep, and then we received regular reports from them on the blasting results. And then there was a complaint process that was coordinated.
Well, will we be at the mercy of relying on the gravel pit owners to do the monitoring, or will the village do anything for us?
Or is it because, oh, it's in Westport, we don't care?
I don't think I would ever take that attitude if it was impacting our residents.
Which it will.
So I think that we absolutely can at least voice our concern to Westport. We can maybe send a letter over to Tom and Dean, letting them know we kind of like we allowed them the opportunity with Veridian to weigh in. We can maybe weigh in a little bit on what's happening with that. Does that make sense?
I think it's something we can look at
We can also have a conversation
with the
Tierneys.
with the Tierneys.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
okay.
There's
Okay.
significant damage to some of my neighbors' house from the blasting development there. And I don't think they'd give me money for that.
So I haven't heard anybody, at least to me, I mean, to me, I haven't
Maybe
heard
they
it.
didn't know or didn't know how to complain or anything like that, but they're,
Who's the owner on that gravel pit?
Who owns the gravel
Well,
pit?
yeah, who was
The
it?
Tierney.
They were having a couple
It's
discussions
some
here.
Tierneys.
corporation.
I believe it's the Tierneys that own it.
It's theirs.
Yeah.
Tierney owns the gravel pit where they're talking about?
Yes.
They own that entire,
The sandy area?
Yeah, it's on.
Or is
Yeah,
it a pit?
this piece right here.
everything
And
with
then
everything
come
with that
down.
little rectangle on the side.
So I haven't heard from any residents that happened, so they should absolutely contact the village. Excuse me, if that's the case.
I don't know why they wouldn't. I'm sure I would if.
Todd, would you show me, I didn't see where you marked where it is?
Oh,
Where the, yeah. Okay, that's exactly what I thought it was.
Except the
Okay, thank
houses
you.
in the bottom right
Okay.
corner.
if you drive out there, there's a tree line right here. That's
Okay.
the southern end of it.
Which goes up against the Veridian development,
Yep, right. Yep.
That's correct, on the north side.
where all the action in town is.
I'm not gonna say all the action, but yeah, some of the action
Some of the action.
in town is, yes.
So with that, are they expanding are they expanding capacity, or have they just tapped out the resources that are there now?
For the gravel pit we're talking about again? I don't know if they've tapped it out completely, but they have the rights with the state to go further with that. That
Yeah,
was-
and I guess it kind of comes back to this concept of you're asking a developer to upgrade the roads, which is good. I mean, that's reasonable, but if you knew that there's going to be an expansion with very heavy vehicles, which we've heard many times in village sessions, that those are really the ones that impact the road. Like, if I were a developer, I would take a very different view of an expansion with potentially more capacity, not also being asked to shoulder some of that cost.
Sure, I follow that.
She's saying that if you're asking Veridian to improve Schumacher, they should be able to annoy that it's going to be to the benefit of Don Tierney's heavy trucks hauling rocks.
Okay, now, thank you.
So is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're okay with his amendment? Okay. Did you write that down? Okay. Thanks for-
Sorry, Ann, I
thanks.
wasn't trying.
Thank you for the comment, thank you for the clarification. Todd wrote it down, so it's something that we can consider for them. Others?
Okay, go ahead, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, I got a long one, and
Okay, go ahead.
I already talked to Todd about it, so I might not need to bring it up, but, you know, I've got a building permit for a building in the backyard. And almost 3 months ago, they told me to stop building on it, and I still haven't gotten an enforceable reason why. It's basically because, you know, we went, well, first of all, it was violating Wisconsin law, and I proved that I wasn't. I got the Bureau of Aeronautics. It took me a month. Finally convinced the engineer, Kevin, that I think I convinced him because I sent a quote saying he absolutely will not be violating this law to Kevin. And I said, okay, Kevin, can I continue building? And he said, no, here's another obstacle for you. How about this FAA law? And I said, okay. I talked to the FAA. They said they have no authority at all over Wanakee Airport. But I'll fill this out to give you, and that gives the FAA idea that where buildings are going to be, so they can put it in their notes that, you know, a structure will be such and such. And there's like 80 structures closer to the runway than my building would be. None of those were mentioned. Just says people and equipment near the runway, and that's all the FAA description has. But, so they have no authority. The FAA's got no authority. The Wisconsin Bureau's got no authority, where the runway is privately owned.
So who technically has authority over it then?
I'm going to say me or the village. I'm going to say me. We'll just go that way. Because the FAA doesn't care, you know. And I own part of the airport, but the airport owns none of my yard. Yet the airport's saying you can't build in your yard.
So when you say the airport, you mean the rest of the airport owners?
Yeah, and I'm one of the 24 that owns the little tiny strip of airport.
So,
And if you, I don't know if you can zoom in close enough, you can see I got 14-foot trees right on my property line. Show me right there. See the trees in the lower right?
Can I ask you a question for those of us that don't live?
Yeah.
Is it like an owners association?
No, it's an LLC
Okay.
that we bought, and there is no association agreement.
Okay.
And so this is where 14-foot tree, there's actually 5 bushes and 7 utility boxes in my backyard. And I want to put the hangar like here. Build
It's
it
not a
here.
hangar, it's utility.
It's not a hangar. It's a. I wanted to do a hangar. I got tabled at the hearing for the conditional use permit. So I decided basically to build half the size of a hangar because that was allowed. I went to the village and said, okay, you're tabling it and your lawyer's charging me to review all the false documents that my neighbor's bringing down. I don't want to pay. You know, and I had a meeting with you and Kevin about that.
We talked about it.
We didn't have any resolution. I sent you guys emails, I never heard back. So I went to the village and said, what can I build without going through this crap? And they said, 800 square feet, no taller than 15 feet. I said, okay, here's my plan, got the permit, spent $13,000 on it so far, got my yard torn up. And then this guy, who wouldn't be able to, you know, ruin the sunsets from his hot tub, he came down and he said, you can't do it. You know, here's a law, which is not a law. Here's another guideline, which doesn't affect, you know, he gave you a whole list of stuff, and he said, you're not complying with this, and I've proven that it doesn't have to be complied with. The law is I have a permit, and you can't change the rules after I get the permit, actually, after I apply for the permit. So I'm sitting here, and I just lost $3,000 because I didn't have my yard ready by the first of the year. My contract is still valid with people, so I don't know. It's just been frustrating. Kevin says I got to wait 45 days for the FAA to come back with a determination, which isn't binding on the airport. You know, I was telling Todd, if you can scroll a little bit this way.
Because
Yeah, there's a little bit more. Yeah, right here is where you're putting up some new houses there. I guess the road's not in here yet. Woodland, Dublin, and then there's some more right up in here. On top of that, you know, the law that Kevin is asking me to comply with, 7460-1, says anything within 10,000 feet, which is almost 2 miles, in a 50-to-1 slope from the runway, you have to file this 7460-1. And I looked over the records over the last 20 years. I'm the only one on the airport that's ever had to fill this out. These houses that are going up now have current building permits, and I got a picture on my phone with a crane sticking 50 feet in the air. These houses would be required to file that. And I pointed that out to Kevin, and they got nothing, and they're still continuing. So if you're going to stop my building permit for 7460-1, you got to stop these guys. I know you're not going to, and I know they're not. It's not a threat to the airport. I mean, this is a puny little 27-foot wide airport. You've got to have a really slow, small plane to get in there. These rules are for Madison, Middleton, you know, big airports, but that's just a guideline at Wanakee. Still, it's a law that you got to fill out this form so the FAA can judge whether it's true or not. Now, the last time it was filled out in this area was actually Nordgear, wherever they're headed that last year. They're way out of it. They're within 10,000 feet, but around here, you file 10-foot poles in the school parking lot with determination no hazard. Well, the 40-foot poles on his soccer field at the end of the runway, nobody ever filed, nobody ever bothered to ask. The soccer fields here, nobody ever bothered to ask the FAA. So the only reason I'm having to do it is because this guy, who doesn't block his view, digging up, what can we do to stop this guy? What can we do? You know, when he found, here's an obscure thing that nobody's ever done on the runway. All of our houses would have had to file that, but none of them did.
Okay, so
I talked to him and I gave him that information. I just want,
okay.
what's the?
So I'd just ask, because I don't know the answer to this, so that you have one other airport owner? Is there others
There's
that are
24
concerned
people
about it?
that own the airport. But yeah, there's some. This guy down here doesn't fly anymore. My neighbors on both sides are in favor of it. You know, Maryland Cross is in favor of it. There's a lot of people that are in favor of it. But like I said, that doesn't really matter because it's my yard and they don't have any say in my yard. You know, these trees here, they don't have any say whether I should cut the trees down or not. And I told them I would cut them down if I could build my hangar here because I need to get into my yard. But since I can't get a plane in my yard, I'm leaving the trees there. You know, I'm waiting to plant more. You know, it's like,
Do you have any comments, Joe?
Not really. I don't have a law degree, so.
so I don't know.
I think the only thing I can think is if there's other, I'm not a pilot, I don't know how to fly a plane, to be very clear, and I don't know any of the rules of FAA, any of those. But I would guess that building, if there's concern from other pilots on approach,
There's concern from some, and other ones say, "Are you serious? There's trees there that are taller. Why, you know, why is that an issue?"
and again, I don't disagree with
But
what
still,
you're
it
saying
doesn't
there
matter.
necessarily.
This is privately owned airport, and do they get to control everybody's backyard? Like these trees. There's a tree down here. It's huge, and
Is that common for an airport not
No.
to have any governing bodies over it?
not or for FAA or federal funded airports or state funded airports. Yeah, they got controls all over the place.
So what I mean is, if for a private strip like this, anywhere, not
Private, like
Wanakee,
a farmer's field in the backyard, they
that's a
don't need.
paved thing or anything
They
like
don't
that?
need to have
Where there's,
anything.
in a
And they call
community.
themselves a public use runway, but they're still privately owned. The FAA's got no funding there, so they don't.
So what I'm getting at is is there other governing bodies that would oversee those for this type of situation? Because right now I feel like, all right, we're not making a decision that you need us to make.
Wisconsin governs this end of the airport because the road's there. So they say we have to have a displaced threshold. See, there's a line here, and we can't land this close because we might hit cars. If we go here, then we'll be, 10 feet above the cars, and that'll be okay. This end is not really a displaced threshold because there's no cars. I mean, maybe there should be now with the soccer fields, but nobody's looking at that.
So maybe I'll rephrase my question. I'm trying to gather what you're asking is to get your project done. I get it. I get that part of it. What I'm trying to figure out is who is the governing body that can approve. So since Kevin is the one that's saying no right now, or it's on hold, because he's getting other information from somebody who's not overseeing it.
Other people on the airport are feeding them stuff.
Yeah, so let me just finish there what I'm saying. So he's getting information from somebody who doesn't oversee it. How is that going to change his opinion? I'm just trying to figure out who's governing it.
Doesn't your LLC, I mean, so you said there's an LLC.
Right.
That owns
just the
actual
airport. They don't control anything outside the airport. They only
But
keep
it owns the Lineage.
So that LLC,
Right.
so that LLC, how many members are there?
24.
So would the 24 members be the voting people to say yes or no?
Not in my backyard, no. They vote on,
Based-
we could do on the airport property only.
But based on the rules of the runway, I mean, because it's there, if that group has say, wouldn't they be the ones to determine?
Well, then the group could tell this person to take their trees down, or this person, they could,
I
they could
get
say,
it.
everybody can tear down their hangers because, we are the authority here. They don't have any authority over other people's yards, none.
There is no legal,
There's no association agreement between the houses, and there was a deed restriction in 1980 that expired in 2005. So right now, there is no, the runway sold everything, they should have kept this land, but they sold it down to there. So now they don't control it anymore, but they're trying to control it, even though they don't own it anymore.
and there's no easement.
There's no utility easement here at 20 feet. So that's why there's 80 power boxes running up and down both sides of the runway.
Sure.
And, no point in complaining about those because the utility company can build whatever they want in there. They have an easement. So the runway can't stop them, but, they shouldn't be able to stop. They're saying, well, you can put it back here up against your house. Well, I got a really steep slope yard. I tried pulling the plane down there and to get it out of my yard up the slope, I burned a hole because it had to be full throttle all the way up the yard. It's burned my grass. I'm not going to do that.
So, all right, so I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at here. I don't know if Kevin's going to FAA to get rules or whatever that don't apply to this.
Guidelines.
Or guidelines.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how that has any enforceable.
The guidelines are not enforceable, and the FAA will tell you that. And I've sent them emails from the Bureau of Aeronautics that tell you that.
Has Brian or anybody been consulted on this at all? And what did they say?
I don't recall specifically, but
I'll get more
I
answers.
just want to know what the
and see what
law
we can do.
is. And I talked to the lawyers at Bryant,
Yeah.
talked to him, and I said, what authority? He said, general power. You have general power to turn off your building permit, when we feel like it. That wasn't his words, but he said, we have general power to do that. I said, to
Okay.
let a
so-
guy start and spend money in
So
a
we'll have
permit and say-
another conversation with it. I don't know that we're going to resolve this right here.
I know, I just want an opportunity. I haven't talked
Nor
to
do I
him
have the
directly in
power.
a while.
Nor do I have the power to resolve it.
I've talked to Kevin a lot on it, and I'm getting nowhere with him, so.
Okay.
He's saying, wait 45 days. There's no reason. If they come back hazard, no hazard, it doesn't matter. They don't have any authority, but.
Right. Did you?
Same thing with my neighbors, hazard, no hazard. They don't have any authority, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay.
So can I ask you another question, just because there has been some misinformation, possibly there was a petition that was.
There was a petition that went around, and it was full of misinformation.
Okay, so the reason that was stated in the petition was that it was going to become the runway that the LLC presumably was going to become uninsurable.
Well, first of all, that's false, because I talked to my plane, and the guy insures my plane, and he said he'd insure it.
Okay.
And second of all, it doesn't matter because, it is my problem because I own part of the airport, but it's not my problem as a property owner. What happens, what I build, I have permitted use for a building. But it's a lie. It's not uninsurable.
Okay.
Okay.
And it doesn't need to be insured. It's privately owned. What's it insured for? A plane crashes into my yard. It's between me and the plane. It's not, the LLC has nothing to do with it because it didn't land. The LLC landed in my backyard.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Others?
Okay, I'm back to the question about soap in the park, restrooms. I know that there is vandalism that has happened, and I know that it's a mess to clean it up. I mean, I've cleaned up a lot of messes with soap over my years. But we have also had toilets blown up. We've had toilet paper caught on fire, but we still have toilets and toilet paper in our restrooms. And I even got a manual from Uline, which supplies places with all these types of things, and I looked, and there isn't anything that could come out like in a powder, or, metered powder or anything that wouldn't cause a big mess. But I would just like to make it, to state it again, that sanitation and germ control is a big issue, and it gets bigger every year. And antibiotic or antibacterial soaps don't cut it for many reasons. Some people are allergic to them. There's a possibility that superbugs grow when people overuse the antibacterials. But I feel that it is very important for there to be soap in the restrooms. Think about all the things that people do in restrooms, and if they don't thoroughly wash their hands, what we're passing all over among each other.
So what would be the process to change that?
Well, let me just,
Parks Department would have.
well, let me add that,
And Bill.
as you know, it's not the first time we've heard this.
Right.
Bill did inform me before the end of last year that he's looking at, because technology changes all the time, equipment changes, there's new advancements, and, indestructible this and that. So he is reviewing options. I'm not going to sit here and promise you're going to have a soap in the bathroom at Rip Park next spring. But I can tell you that Bill is looking at potential solutions.
Okay, that makes me happy, because it may sound like a very,
And the Bill is Bill Frederick. He's the Streets and Park Superintendent.
it may sound like a very small thing, but in reality, it's a very big thing.
You're not the only one who's expressed concerns, so.
Any other things? No questions? Yes, ma'am.
This is going to be your favorite, but I saw that the village had been open to an arbitration agreement with Terrence Wall. Can you comment on that?
Can we comment on that?
I don't suggest commenting on anything regarding the case.
I would love to. But I can't.
Look to comment or look to have the breeze?
Both.
So, yes, I would love to comment on it and to protect the village, because that's what I'm doing. I will not say anything. Because there's no reason that, well, I'll leave it at that. Yes.
I was at the meeting the other night when you made the board made the decision to what to do with the old library building. I just have a suggestion, because of information out there, it's passing all over the place. I think it would be great to have a meeting, informational meeting for the public where they can come, you can give a presentation, let them ask their questions, talk about their concerns, et cetera, and get ahead of it before all these things, misinformation flies around.
Yeah, so we just entered down the process of starting to potentially do that. We haven't officially 100% decided, correct?
Well,
We're going down that road because
we're gonna
that's our plan.
proceed on the RFP for Village Hall and then complete the architectural design work.
And what I think you're getting at is maybe the architectural side of things?
Well,
or-
I'm just thinking about before the final decision is made, present it to the community so they can weigh in on it, and you can talk about price point, you can talk about what needs to be done, so that all this misinformation is not playing around.
Okay.
What's the misinformation?
Well, as far as, price, the proposal is, whatever you decide, just things like that. I mean, because...
Oh, that'll be definitely all public processes, so there'll be opportunity with the village board to hear, to see RFPs.
But what I'm saying is, at the point of a public hearing, it's too late. I feel that to get ahead of it and to have the best possible project, there needs to be a meeting to inform the public of what the proposal is, and let them ask their questions and know what's going on, and that just promotes the project rather than leaving it open for misinformation, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Well,
Does that
I guess
make
I would
sense?
say that the process has been very open thus far, and anyone with questions, I and my staff are very available to answer them. So I think there's a point to which I think the village board has done a complete job in discussing the project, sharing options, sharing opportunities, and we are available to answer questions.
But you're missing my point. I'm not saying anything negative about what has been done. I'm saying to bring a group together, to have a discussion, and to have comments would be a very positive thing. In the beginning, instead of just at the end.
Are you asking for an ad hoc citizens committee to?
No, not a
Okay.
committee. I'm not asking for a committee.
Just
I'm
something
asking
like
for
you for the pool.
a discussion like the pool had.
Yeah, I was just gonna.
Yes, correct.
As a member of the public, I would just say, since I was hard on you guys about closed sessions earlier, I feel like they've been very open about this process, and I would be, I guess as one member of the public, the other, I'd kind of say people should go to the village board meeting if they want to comment, because it's been an option in the past. But the other part of it that I'd find kind of troublesome is, I think based off of the budget that you guys have presented at this point, there's not a lot of taxpayer money really
No, that's
involved in
correct.
this, so-
That's one of the informational things that need to be put out there. That explanation. I said at the meeting, I understand where the money's coming from, but will the general public understand that?
If they choose to.
Well,
Yeah, I think
yeah, but
that's
that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm suggesting to have an open meeting where people can come and get the information.
I'm not opposed to it at all, just like we were with the pool. I mean, just like today. I mean,
Right.
if people wanted to come and ask about anything, that's what this is for. So I don't think we've ever been opposed to having any topic discussed or talked about. That's not our intent ever. Ever. So I hear what you're saying. and I think
What
as
I'm
this
saying
goes
is you
through-
had a specific meeting for the pool project, which I fully appreciated. I appreciated the process. But I think if that was open for specific topics, I don't know if it'll work. I have no idea. But to give it a try so people know if this is a specific topic, we can come this night and have our questions answered, the information will be given out, and that just opens things up that much more. At the end of a project, when you have a public hearing, this is my opinion, everything's cut and dried pretty much. They're ready for approval, and whatever a citizen says is okay, but I always feel like it's too late at that point.
So Nyla, are you asking for like an informational session like the DOT did once they kind of had the project for the roundabout?
Correct.
All of that kind of put together? Okay, so.
Correct, informational meetings, but where a person can ask a question or make a comment.
More of an open house kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, good wording, Joe.
Okay, I'm not opposed.
I don't know that people will come, but we don't know until it's tried.
Sure. Yeah. It was, yeah. Does anybody want to talk about the pool? Since you brought that up?
I should have gone to the meeting.
What's that?
So where are we on the committee?
Yeah, where are we?
So, how fast do you think this should be going? I should ask that question.
I mean, it wasn't really made clear to us how fast it was going to be at the
So,
initial day.
to have a pool built in 2023, I think, is that where we were in the budget? Or 2022, the earliest?
Was it 3 for
I think
construction?
it's 2023 for it to be complete. So we are right on pace for that. I actually had 3 hours of meeting this morning to deal with the consultants, potentially, that we would choose to help our committee as we choose that committee. So we're going through the steps to get to that point.
Do you know where it's
Within
going
that.
to be and what time?
No idea. I don't know the scope. That's what the consultants will help us with. That's what we talked about with them today was, where, we didn't talk about spots, but that's one of the things they would help us to identify where it might be. What do we want?
What it might be.
Yeah, what it might be. Is it going to be a pool in a park combined where we can have multi-use things year-round? Is there potential for a dome? Does it make sense to have a dome, no dome? Should it just be a spray park? Should it be just a regular pool? There's all different things that the consultants will look at all the demographics for around us to see if it makes sense. Because it's potential that they're going to say, does it make sense?
Versus 3 months a year, like for the 12 months pool.
So, and that's what they're going to tell us, is, I heard, 75 days of use, and I go, ooh.
They're also going to help us engage the public to try to establish what the general consensus
Correct.
is.
So there's a whole process that it's going to go through, and I think they laid it out. It's like a 9-month process that you have a lot of input from the community. There's a referendum that's going to take place with it, all of that. That's what their jobs are, is to help guide that committee and go through the process.
Is there any chance of opening up the high school pool for different hours or different activities?
I think the high school pool is pretty heavily used, maxed out. I mean, I'm not a swimmer. I don't have a horse in the game whatsoever, but I will say that my opinion on a pool is, if we're going to have it, I want it to be that everybody's going to use it, that it's designed for our youth all the way up to our seniors, so people have that for an option. And the interesting thing the consultant said today was, it's never good when the kids are standing there freezing, shivering the whole time. And I said, it's never good for the seniors either, to myself. When they're standing there shivering or shivering, they're not going to want to be in there either. So it's got to be a usability factors. It could be something that maybe we have other features, basketball courts within that we could do, something you could lay over the top. There's all kinds of things we're going to be talking about and going down. Where we end up, I don't know, but we're going through that process. And again, it's not free.
You've seen It's a Wonderful Life, right, Chris?
Yes.
I don't want to know.
Understood. So, yes. We saw beautiful already facilities across the state. Appleton just put one in. What did you say? The mayor walked in his suit.
Oh, yeah.
To kick it off with his grandchildren. Wisconsin Rapids. And Wisconsin Rapids is building it, building it based on, they have a declining community, closing schools and doing things, and they're trying to reinvigorate their community. So they're investing with other things, trying to do that, to draw people there, because they have a lot of people leaving. So they have a different, completely scenario than we potentially have.
Are they an opportunity zone though?
Was it an opportunity zone? I don't even know if they talked about that. They didn't talk about that today, so I can't answer that. But that's my point. That's what the consultants will help our committee do.
Any private firms talk, like, Harbor Athletic or Sun Prairie or Princeton, or, a nice indoor facility that we don't have to pay for, they would, can we court that? Or you pay membership.
I think that you talked with Prairie?
There's been interest from larger athletic clubs to look at significant facility potential. And in those discussions with them, I've indicated our interest in a community pool. Chris is concerned about it being accessible to the public at large. Would probably make Chris concerned if it was just Prairie doing their own thing or Harbor doing their own thing, that it's going to be costly, membership-based, and limited for general public. So the scenario would have to be a public-private partnership to solve that, I think, in a way that would make you and the board's satisfied.
I've stated this before. I mean, I am not in favor of the little pools in all the communities that we have. I think that creates haves and have-nots in our community. I don't like it. I never have. They're there. I can't do anything about it at this point. But they also serve a limited purpose in those subdivisions.
I used to go to, you weren't a member, it's $10 a day, not a big thing, and so it's open to the community. If you only go 3 times a year, then pay for that if you want to.
Or know somebody that lives there.
Pardon me?
Is in your subdivision?
It's Southbridge.
In your area?
I'm not a member.
So I think people have the options of being members, and if they are, they can maybe bring a guest. I don't even know.
If you pay the upfront fee and then pay your annual, you can bring a guest, but they have to pay a fee, I think.
Anyway, I'm just tossing that out. I didn't know if you.
So it's something that the whole community, we want the community's input and involved. So that's one thing.
If it was like a YMCA or something, and you didn't want to go, well, then you don't have to pay for it. If I wanted to go, but then you got to convince the Y to come in. You got to show us there's interest. And
sure.
Maybe at these meetings, you get all the people saying, "I want to go." See why? These people want to go.
Maybe. Community growing too fast, too slow, right pace? How does people feel about
Kind
that?
of concerned with development. I don't know that much about it, but they want a division.
Viridian, that's about it?
Yeah,
Okay.
because 19's kind of a challenge now, and I got the end division.
And Q, all
Certain
of those,
Q, certainly not gonna
certain
get
times
better.
of day, those roads are just overloaded. That's probably the biggest concern.
Is there going to be any good for those roads, or Main Street, or?
Well, that's kind of what we were discussing with Division to a certain degree, getting some people through on different parts. So you'd have Division and Schumacher that you could have relief for people over in that area, just not Madison,
Right
which is
now,
where Quick Trip is. That's where a lot of traffic is
going
going.
from Sun Prairie to Middleton, a lot of it's through downtown. People don't live here, but they go through the downtown.
I know, I can't do anything about some Prairie and Middleton, but,
I know, but if we had a road like Easy Street or something is a bigger, you know.
or DeForest for that matter. They're also part of that mix that are coming through. So-
Yeah, once M is done.
Turn off a valve to
Well, we'll see how that
That's potential.
It has potential.
I have one comment on that now, as a member of the Schumacher Farm Board. I mean, have you heard from, because our one concern, and I think would be great for the village, would be that there's access from the Viridian subdivision to Schumacher Farm. And just, you know, that there would be, I mean, we had met a guy from Viridian at our meeting, you know, and they're going to have this trail system and sidewalks and everything, which I think, you know, would be a great asset for them, and I think would be great for the park. I mean, my one concern is then we have a safe crossing.
Agreed.
You know, and I just want to kind of throw that out there that, and we don't have a specific spot where, you know, it would be, but you know, you got that hill at the top, which obviously is not, you can't put it at the corner. And
Yeah,
it's
so
the
the-
light, so I mean, some kind of crossing somewhere on the parkland, I think would be great for, you know, for both the village and for the park.
In one of the discussions, and I don't remember if it was at Plan or where it was, I've had 20 so meetings probably in regards
Yeah,
to
I'm sure
that.
that's not the biggest item to get.
They are the dog park
Yeah,
that's up there.
Yeah.
I think a nice feature for Schumacher will be the parking lot that they have
Right.
that would have access. And to your point, getting people across Schumacher is going to be the key.
yeah.
And how we figure out how to do that in a safe fashion. I don't know how they're going to engineer that. I'm not
Yeah, I
an
just
engineer.
want the village, you know, I mean, they talked about it, but it would be a village concern, I would think.
I think it was brought up on Monday night, actually,
It
too,
was.
to make
Was it
sure we
in?
had a safe crossing. Yeah. And I think they're completely on board with that.
Yeah, well, they definitely said they like having us there, so.
Yes, Schumacher is an amenity for them, too.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact number, but when I was on the Housing Task Force, they brought up numbers for how many people Dane County expects the population to grow by. It's a huge number. So it's not only Wanakee and the roads going through Wanakee, it's going to be pretty much all of Dane County. And it's going to take a lot of smart planning to make it work. And that's my comment I wanted to make.
100% accurate. Dane County, period, is where the growth is in our state. And you look at the rest of the state outside of Dane County, when we go to meetings, Todd, you go to meetings, a lot of them are suffering right now because of that same situation we just talked about up in Wisconsin Rapids, where you have declining populations, aging populations, no youth moving into the place. That's big troubles for them on the horizon, so they're trying to figure out ways to bring them up. Now Madison is a top destination place in the country right now, and Wanakee is one of those as well. I'm in Dane County, so I can't talk about that. For Viridian's project, phasing is an important thing into our community. It's good to have a certain level of houses available, lots available in the community that can help to bring down the costs of lots, okay? The problem is if we have too much of an influx, it puts more pressures on the village government, it puts pressures on the schools' budgets as well, because you have a larger influx at a short amount of time. The natural response is going to be quick, let's build a new school or build it, you know, we've got to accept that. We have Hi's been here for a long time with me. I'll just say that like that. How's that? And it's always been a priority is schools in our community. And we're known for that. Everybody, I mean, I'm not taking credit for that. The school boards over the years have done a great job. Our community has been very supportive of schools. It also has helped our property values to be where they're at. Having a great school district, people want to be here. Does anybody disagree with that? I mean, so that's kind of been a philosophy in town. And so people for many, many, many years have been investing into the community. And this is not a knock in any way, shape, or form. People are coming to our community because of it. And when they come to the community, they should understand that's a philosophy here, I believe, that schools, and as a result of that, we are going to put money towards those schools.
Used to be a nice little small town.
I remember that.
I'm up front.
23 hands. Go ahead, Robert. I'll go left to right. Is that okay with everybody?
What would you say is the village board's relationship with the Board of Education in the community school district?
It needs to stay small.
What is our relationship with?
Yeah, I
with
mean,
them?
do you guys communicate with your elected counterparts on the school board regularly?
So I communicate with Mrs. Ensign and Randy Gutenberg, and Todd does as well.
And do you think that the rest of maybe I present this to you, I mean, have other members of the board reached out from the Board of Education? There seems to be a common theme that we hear. I attend some of the school board meetings. That was me last time who asked, can we move the plan commission so that it would be easier to get the...
Okay.
And then you guys got mad and said, don't talk about plan commission time.
I don't think I ever get mad. Do I have I ever?
You did shush Todd in the meeting when he brought it up, and he said, we're not talking about that.
I shushed you?
I don't know, you can if you want to.
Okay.
There seems to often be, on their level, last meeting they did the presentation for their long-range planning, and they talked about the new houses that are coming up in the village. So they talked about Don's 3 neighborhoods coming online, things like that. So that's, they're trying to be cognizant when they do their planning. They were talking about Madison and Maine, but then they realized it's too expensive for people with kids to move in there anyway, so it's not really, I'm sorry, Lamb House. The point is that they're paying a lot of attention to what the village is doing planning-wise as far as new housing, because, as you said, that's how they determine what to build, something like that. But there seemed to be an alarming disconnect with some of their board members where they didn't seem to know, like, what the village was thinking on some of these things. They had a disconnect on the price of houses, and it also led to a disconnect for knowing what type of school to build, because they're not talking about housing for people with young children, they're talking about people with middle school children, which is why we have probably the referendum is going to be helped by that, because there's a lot more middle school age kids. So I guess from a public perception, in reaching out to some of the BOE members, they've stated that they've never heard from the village board before in the past. So yeah, you could say that that's Ms. Ensign's fault, because she is the president of that. But I mean, has there ever been any consideration or talk about reaching out on an individual level? Or have they reached out to you guys and it's just hasn't gone anywhere?
To be clear, I can't speak for the rest of the board members. I reach out to them as our issues come up. We don't have a standing meeting.
Right, and I understand that. I didn't mean it that way.
And I wouldn't say that Mrs. Ensign, I wouldn't accuse her of anything. She does a great job. I would say that I have a policy that I don't get involved in their business at all. That's me as the village board, because I don't believe that's their world.
Right.
Decisions that we're both making, though, do impact one another, and that's why that conversations have to take place. But I'm not going to publicly state something for them that they should be doing. I stay out of that, but to your point, I think what you're getting at, the disconnect that you're referring to, generally is going to revolve around numbers for housing, is where that may be. Nobody knows exactly where the numbers came from. It was 125 was what we, for years. That policy has served both the school district and the village very well.
But you have members of the BOE publicly saying that 125 number is outdated and shouldn't be used anymore, but it's still a number that we hear used by the village at planning levels. So I think that's concerning as a member of the public. Like, why is that?
If there was a concern, I would have heard that from them. That hasn't been communicated to me.
I think they've tried to reach out to other members of the village board, which I get, that's not you.
Okay.
But I guess I'm concerned because I've heard that from BOE members before that number's wrong. Randy Gutenberg in the Housing Task Force said that that number was pretty outdated and probably not the best use. He said that it was either the last or the second to last one. He did state that.
Yep.
So I guess my concern is that was a while ago that he said that, and we've had board members from the BOE say that as well, that it's not. So again, where is
So
the
what
disconnect?
was their stance, if you don't mind me asking?
The stance on,
That-
just that number was outdated and that.
Did they have a number that was?
No, because
They
there's.
didn't give it.
Yeah, they're not giving a number, they're saying that they can work around whatever the village is looking at doing, which is like what they were doing their long-term planning. But that number keeps coming back up, and then they keep saying that's not the number, but they don't want to make a number. And it's funny because neither side really wants to make a decision, because both, you know, the village likes using that number as justification for its growth, you know, decisions, like the 30 units per subdivision rule is based around that. The Housing Task Force had to
30
operate.
units per year.
30 units per year, excuse me, you're right.
Yes.
Right.
But, and the Housing Task Force had to work around that number with the 125 number, but the justification of using that number is, well, that's what the Board of Education wants because they don't want to grow too fast. And then,
The village board hasn't said that. The board uses that number in deference to the school district so that our growth doesn't impact negatively. Gene Homley and John Laumeier conceived the 125 rule. That was a long time ago. Randy admits that as well. I just had a conversation with him today. And we are on absolutely the same page about how that number works. And it works as a point of deference to the district so that decisions made by the board always keep an eye on the impact on other jurisdictions, in this case, namely the district. So there isn't what you don't see is an ordinance that limits this. It's a deference policy. And it's one that I think has generated positive relations between the district, at least in my 10 years here. I think there was a rub about a dozen years ago in relation to that. That was before me. I think that was when we really had a hard push in Southbridge and Savannah, when both of those were coming online and lots were just flying. At which point there was builders could get credit. So if we hit a 125, they can still bank above that in future years when it's leaner. But we haven't gotten anywhere close to 125 for a very long time, and I've never, in the relationship that I've witnessed between the district and the village, and I'm not talking about the boards, I'm talking about the way our organizations have worked together, that number hasn't been flaunted as blaming somebody for something, like saying that we have to make decisions because of this hard and fast number. It's a deference policy. That's how I viewed it. That's my conversation with Randy today echoed that. He sees it no different as well.
so if the elected officials though disagree with that number, because again, we're talking about administration, staff, the elected officials, legislature passed the rules, set direct staff, right? Am I understanding municipal government correctly in that case?
Well, in the world of the 125 rule, that's about as gray as it gets, I think. I mean, I can't find it in the code. That's
No, and
telling
I'm
you,
not
so-
looking for an ordinance, but I'm just saying, like, you often will ask for direction from the village board
all the time.
for staff to do that. So that's what I'm getting at here. So if neither side owns this number, but a lot of critical decisions are influenced, okay, I won't say controlled by, because you're right, it's not an ordinance, but if they're influenced by that number, which side is responsible if you have the elected officials at the board of the education saying, hey, maybe we can go higher than 125, or hey, let's not use that as a reason to restrict certain type of housing in the village. You know, if they wanted to move that, who would move it? Would it have to be a joint thing where both sides say that number moves? Would it have to be, you know?
I think it'd be a very worthy conversation to have between the groups.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because they also have to worry about Westport and Middleton.
And they are,
And
'cause-
that, so when those are coming online as well, if they have subdivisions in those areas.
Right.
So those are being put for funnel to our schools as well.
But there's always that concern when we talk about doing any type of different type of housing. I mean, let's face it, the village has built the same type of house for probably the past 15 years, based off of the neighborhoods that have come online. and love them or hate them, that's not the point, but if you build different type of housing, there might be a faster demand for a cheaper house, so to speak, which those lots would sell faster. And I think that's, not to pick on Viridian, but I think that's kind of where they were going, is they wanted to build more lots per year and get online faster because they probably felt they could sell their stuff faster because it had a lower price point. So the point I'm trying to make, though, is they get restricted because we consider the other neighborhoods out there, and then we consider this magic number in there. And then the school board kind of takes some blame from the community because it's like, well, the school board said we can't do that. And then the school board gets upset because they're like, well, you guys say that we're the reason everybody comes here, but then you blame us when we try to build housing for teachers. So
I really want to be, I've never heard the village board use the 125 rule in a matter of blame.
no, I'm not saying it's blame. I'm
So,
just saying
I wanna
it's
make
used
sure-
as a restriction. So I'm not saying that anybody's in the street pointing fingers saying we can't build this house because of 125 and it's the village board's fault. I'm saying that we operate around that limit, though. Everything that we do in the community for new housing seems to be based on that number. So the question is, how would that number go about moving if the school system felt that it could handle more than 125? And then, the village could either say, no, it's a matter of policy, we grow too fast, we don't want to do that, which prerogative, and I get it, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. But it wouldn't then say you can just it wouldn't be that you could restrict it based off of that number that, as admittedly by all parties, it's outdated and maybe doesn't fit the needs of the community now. So
describe what we did on Monday night
with
Viridian.
with the restriction on the 30 per year per subdivision, which I have to be completely honest, I have never heard of before. I asked Kevin at the meeting, and I don't really think we got much of a description on that one. So
So what were they asking for?
What were they asking for? I don't know because I don't have a copy of what they were asking for from the village.
So they were asking for 90 in the first 2 years.
That's in their phasing.
In their
plan.
phasing.
So they were
available.
asking for 45
That's
per
my
year, which
view.
is what you gave them.
Which is exactly what we gave
Yeah,
them.
I know. I'm just saying, but they admitted that even they built their phasing around that policy because they watched the housing task force, so they knew that number was the sweet spot.
So would you agree that, for example, Don Tierney's now going to have something coming out. He's been operating under that phasing of 60 every other year. Should he be allowed to have the 92?
You could argue that it could be a first come, first served basis. I mean, it would, then for everybody who says, give me free market in Wanakee, you would have your free market. So if he feels that he could find enough people that would buy a $500,000 house versus somebody who could buy a $275,000 house, if he feels that the demand is there in excess of that 275, then he's going to have builders who stick their necks out. And I guarantee you, builders remember 2008. They're not going to rush and build a $500,000 house if they feel that it could become less than that.
So you guys are diving deep into the good
I'm
kind of...
just asking the question
Well,
because
I just want to maybe address any other questions, but also
Sorry,
move us...
sorry.
I want to move
You're
us out
right,
of here
I apologize.
in a reasonable time, but what you're getting at is the good type of policy discussion that can occur between the village and the school district collaboratively. And the reason 125 hasn't been an important number for so long is because we've been so far from it.
Right.
We were 61 permits this year.
Right.
We were 101 back, was it 5 years ago maybe, 4 years ago? But otherwise, over the past 10 years, we've been between 40 and 100. So it's been a moot point.
And also to your point, which you have a valid point, I believe. We did a housing study. We have a group that's going to take on that, just like the 75-25 policy is going to be addressed. That probably will be brought up in that segment of it as well. So we're going towards that. But right now, what we've been going with is kind of where we have stayed, and it's been successful for the community. It has. What it didn't have success with is maybe we did not have the lower-end housing. Not lower-end, I don't want to say it. More affordable housing.
Attainable.
More attainable housing.
Yeah.
Such. So that's an area that we are addressing. It's just, we're going through that process. So I'm on board with you for that.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment.
You're next, Ann.
Okay.
I was going left to right.
Whenever a development goes into town, most of the housing, except senior housing, will more than likely bring in families with children. It really doesn't make a difference whether it's what development it is or what type of housing they're building. It's going to bring in children. I just wanted to make that comment because, you know, I hear that supposedly people who have higher end homes have less children or, you know, and all of these different things out there, and basically it doesn't hold true. I've done a lot of reading and research, and it even says that some of the families who have more means, it's their choice, and some of them are even having more than the average 2 children. And I know I'm talking about averages and kind of like stereotypes or whatever, but that's what I have learned. And perhaps, you know, something like this Viridian development is a little bit more dense, but it needs to be more dense if it's going to provide lots that you can put smaller homes on that people can afford.
So I'm not disagreeing. I think the Viridian subdivision is 3 times more dense than any subdivision we've ever
It is
looked
more
at.
dense, yes.
So it's significantly more dense.
So when we're asking, you know, what I'm trying to say is when we're asking for starter homes or less, you know, homes for working people, about the only way you can manage to do it is to have a smaller home, have on smaller lots and have more density. Otherwise, I don't know of any developers or builders that can do it. So.
Ann?
Okay, so a couple of things that I'm trying to understand as an outsider. So Todd, you just said we had 60 building permits pulled.
61 single-family homes.
And there's 125 that I'm just going to state is the target number by the board and the school district.
Maximum.
Okay, maximum. So what's happening to the permits that are not pulled in the subdivisions as they move forward, I guess? So if there were 30 permits per year for that subdivision and they're not pulled, what happens to those permits? Do they go forward? Do they go to a lottery system? Like, is there a way, if there is a demand for somebody to potentially build out that, for that to come online? And then second question, more fun question, are we gonna have a 150-year celebration next year?
Yes.
And is there gonna be a committee for all that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a fun one.
First question, and this is one of the best answers in the world, I don't know.
Okay.
I frankly don't know. Again, back when we had that, when the housing boom was occurring, they had this process to bank them. But I don't know what happens to so-called unused allotments. I'm guessing nothing happens, but I can find out.
That's a good answer. You said you don't know.
I don't know,
so that's a good answer.
but I'll find out. Do you want to talk about where you want to go with the 150 year?
Go ahead.
Well, Chris told me that the Create Wanakee Committee should be tasked with starting the initiative, which will likely result in a subgroup or a special task force of sorts that will carry it on. And as you had put it to me, that task force should be a cross-representation of the community with invites to all the other existing groups to have a piece of that process, right?
Well said.
And the Create Wanakee Committee meeting is starting, I think in February we'll have our first meeting, and that's one of the agenda items for our first meeting. Manitowoc is celebrating 150 years this year. Justin Nichols, the mayor there, sent me all of their materials, so I'm starting to try to gather up ideas, and we'll be all ears and all hands on deck too to make it a good one.
I can just say, like, we had our Lions and Lioness holiday party, and the Centennial celebration was really fun because we actually went back and did like a whole specialized Wanakee trivia. So we drew a lot from that, and that was really great.
Good.
Yeah, there was a lot of fun stuff back for the 100. Special beer. I have a can of it.
Still have those cans.
I didn't drink it.
I wouldn't
wouldn't
drink
want
it at
to,
this
no.
point, yeah.
I've got a special bow tie. Has anybody seen the bow ties? The little black bow tie with the two that has the first year and then the 1970, whatever it was. I've got one of those in my office too.
So that committee will be tasked with a lot of stuff, you know. Is it events throughout the year? Is it a specific day event? How are we going to go about that? We don't know that. We haven't really.
Sam already mentioned to me that he's interested, so sorry you're stuck with it, Sam. You're going to be involved.
With that.
Question on the Wana Boom and the Wana Fest. Those are usually the 2 nights I have to sleep in the basement because the music is so loud, and we're like a mile or 2 away. The Oktoberfest, I never have any problem. I don't know, maybe we shut down early or something.
Well, one of them is done at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? Well, Oktoberfest I think is the worst because that goes, what, midnight or later?
One of them's always done at 10, so I don't know.
Wana Fest, I'm sorry, Oktoberfest is, I like Oktoberfest. Yeah, Wana Fest is the one that's the worst, I think, for us.
You just leave town.
Is it 11? If I was sleeping in my basement, I could go out of town.
I think Wanafest's bands go till later. I think they're like 1 or 2 in the morning.
1 or 2, yeah.
If it makes you feel better, I hear them in Southbridge, so
What's that?
I can hear them all the way in Southbridge.
Yeah, well,
Actually, if you don't want to go to a football game, I can hear every announcement and every music that's played during a football game.
football game's not that bad, but because they don't go till 2 in the morning, you know?
What's happening with the Hofbrau?
Yeah, is there anything going on with that building?
Yeah.
They paid their taxes?
They paid their taxes.
That's a
They
pretty good
paid
improvement
their
right there.
taxes.
They paid their taxes.
That's
And
basically.
their permits are for construction of a restaurant of some sort in the lower level. But it's, I mean, that's been the story for 15 years.
How long, I was going to say, how long is a permit good for?
Well, they've had to have their permit reissued over and over and over, including
just keep having it reissued?
state plan permits have had to be reissued. And there's a provision that if work ceases, and don't quote me on it, but there's a period of time where if there is absolutely no work done, then their permits are relinquished. But you can do a very little work and stay active with your project. So there's kind of a tricky back and forth with that one.
So someday.
It must be a big write-up.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
But-
answered your
and-
question about Wanafest and Wanafest. Are you suggesting that we shut them
I
down?
think it'd be awesome if you could at least turn the music down a little bit by 10 o'clock. And if it's loud at 1 o'clock, and I can even hear it in my basement, but it's just not as bad. And I'm over a mile away.
It's been going on forever.
Well, Ellen, put you on point for a moment.
Ellen, there you go. You're
on
on the Wanafest committee. So
Yeah, what kind of stuff, what does the committee deal with on noise issues?
It's the bass or something. You can feel my wall move from a
Well,
mile away.
we can go till 1. I don't know if that, I mean, that's been as long as I've been involved, that's the case.
And that's probably what's on the amplified music permit with the village?
But there's got to be a decibel
One
limit.
weekend a
Isn't
year.
there?
1 weekend a year. It's a pretty big deal to tell.
Well, you can still have it, just turn the music down so you can hear it in the park, but not over a mile
You're going to have
away.
to take a vacation.
Yeah.
Isn't the music of Wanaboo end
Either
right
that
before
or.
the fireworks?
Yeah, Wanafest music is done at 9:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're done
I
early.
sleep
So-
through that noise, and I live by Walgreens.
No, I can't hear
I
it.
shouldn't say 9:30 to 9:40, whatever that dark spot is.
But,
Yeah.
I guess they do play music during the fireworks too, so it's 10 o'clock.
but I mean, I think the fireworks are louder than
Fireworks are probably louder, but
10 o'clock's not that bad. It's reasonable, but 1 o'clock, for the old guys, 1 o'clock, I can't, I haven't stayed up to midnight, in Newton since 2000. So I can't do midnight.
okay. Sam?
So obviously you have, your new CDA, the Create One Key, you got a lot on your plate right now with committees. After that, are you going to finally make a historic preservation committee?
We discussed it recently. It came up at one meeting, and I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know that we've really done anything
Well-
recently on it. We do need to be very careful in whatever road we take.
Well, I'm thinking something like, what Westport does, not very restricted, because, historic districts, things like that, they're restricted.
Yeah,
And I don't want
exactly.
restrictions to people. I like what they do because it doesn't restrict anybody, it's very independent, and it's been successful, it's worked for a long time.
What do they do?
you know, they undertake special projects.
So they've worked to
Silos.
celebrate history. It's
Right.
almost
Right.
operated more as a historic society
Right.
as opposed to a commission. A Historic Preservation Commission is a statutory mandated obligation in Wanakee. That obligation rests under the Plan Commission. And if what you're recalling, Chris, is the discussion we had about possibly shifting that to the CDA,
That's what it
which the
was.
board decided not to do.
Yep.
You left that with the Plan Commission. So in a commission can establish historic districts with a higher intensity level of rules and regulation for building modification changes. So it's kind of like an additional step and rigor in a development process. A historic society is one that does a lot of what I think you're saying, Sam, that Westport's commission has been doing. And I met with Joe Pichette 2 weeks ago. He's the chair of Westport's commission, and we talked for a good hour about what they do. We talked about the idea, is there collaboration, because Wanakee's history is Westport's history and vice versa. Is there a joining forces potential? And he was intrigued by that. And that's something that he was and I were gonna follow up with Tom on. Worth exploring. I'm a big supporter of doing that. Chris knows this. Back when I started, we actually convened a task force to explore the potential. We brought in someone from the Historic Society to talk about the different forms. And we didn't get much past home plate on that process, and it fizzled. So I'm looking forward to continuing to explore that.
There are some very small communities that have very nice areas where they have displays and, you know, like our library. Now, we have a beautiful display there. It would be wonderful if we could have more displays. I think I heard about one at one of the churches or something.
So it's going to be about the churches.
Oh, about the
Display.
churches, okay.
A little
But-
news, we are adding 4 historic kiosks in the village next summer.
Oh, good.
The edits are done, they're ready to go to print. They'll be printed on 10-year warranty, thick plastic on big metal kiosks.
Okay.
3 along the trail by the library and one by the chamber, on the left, one by the chamber building, talking about different aspects of our history. So
Nice, and who put those together?
that's been my pursuit.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Couple good talented people in town helped with it.
Okay. I think that'll be a nice addition to walking and biking and everything we do in Wanakee.
Yeah.
I have another question, and this just annoyed me because they seem to be multiplying. In our 2003 downtown plan, it says that fluorescent, like open signs, are to be limited, if not completely banned. And they are, Red Barn actually had one, now they have 2, and they are really, really bright and pretty obnoxious and do not fit what I would think. So since that building presumably had a sign package that was approved, do you guys have anything you can do about that?
Could I label that an official complaint or concern?
Sure.
Then yes, we can investigate that.
I mean, yeah.
There may, in the C1D, which that's in, there may even be some neon restrictions. I'll tell you what's always, there's a natural progression from signage complaints. I'm not saying it's wrong that you're bothered by it.
I'm just saying, in my reading about the C1D and that district, it was implied pretty heavily that those were not part of what you guys were looking for down there. One, I was going to just let slide, and it was going to be annoying, and I was not going to be very happy with it, but to go by and now see 2 in each of the stores and have them be as bright as they were driving in here,
Okay.
and I would be quite surprised that other people would not see who would be in charge of potentially enforcing it. I mean, I think it's a little bit ridiculous that you would not also say something, but.
I appreciate that. Our code ordinance, our code compliance process has, and like it or not, has been a complaint-based, and it's not to say that staff don't pick things out. I've personally not noticed, I've not caught the signs at Red Barn, but I'll look and I'll assign staff to investigate.
I you that you want to be very careful with that, as there have been cases where if you go by complaint and you're not enforcing things equally, then you lose the power to then enforce what you want to enforce. So, you know.
Yep, that's a very fine line. We understand it. We understand that fine line intimately.
And they have 2 of them. Yeah, so there was 1, now they've got 2, like, yeah.
But the sad thing is, when things start such as that, somebody sees it, and they say, oh, that's nice, I want one too.
Yeah,
And then pretty soon, the whole downtown's filled with them.
Of course you want a big thing that's
Yeah.
we're open, you come in, you know, of course, naturally, that's business, but that, my understanding was that was not part of the agreement for that area of town.
I'll let you know what comes of it.
Okay.
Any others?
I said a quick thing on the historic one. Would the village have any, I assume the answer is going to be no, but would there be any opposition if there was like a 503C or something formed outside of a village, official village committee to address historic things? So if you have like, I'm not good at naming things, but like Friends of the Historical Wanakee Society or whatever.
I think that's what I was trying to champion that 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I tried to pull together an array of people in the community who maybe would take that on. That was my urging. I would actually prefer that.
I figured, so you have one less official.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be wonderful. I came from Milton prior to here, and Milton has the Milton House Museum and the most fantastic historic society that does stuff, and it's become the lifeblood of the city. The old Milton College campus, they've got preservation for those campus buildings, and then the Milton House Museum and all of its rich history. So I have tremendous appreciation for it, and I do feel we lack the attention to that. I get calls from people who say, my grandmother is moving away or she's passed away and I've got this box of really neat stuff. Who can I give it to? And that point organization does not exist today. They'll try Schumacher Farm Park. They're a very narrow view and they only have so much room, so they have to say no a lot, and I understand, I get it. And the library, we did the best we could with the space we had, but that's limited as well. So
I was only asking because it seems like
anything,
everybody's waiting for you to do something. So
no, and if I can help.
Yeah. I get it's a matter of resources.
Yeah, if there's anything I can do to help, and there's an interested group that cares to pursue that, I'm right along with you.
That's weird. Your assumption was no right away, but you're saying.
No, that there would be no problem.
Oh, okay.
Not that you'd say no. My assumption is that you'd prefer not to have.
I would not feel like Tozer stepped on me.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think that would be fantastic to have.
That's so true.
I work from an area where it's just like you want something, just move forward and do it. I didn't think that the village needed to officially. Plus, I figured that you would be more than willing to work with any group.
Yeah, and the group the State Historic Society comes in, they've got a multitude of resources, how to start a 501c3 society. I don't think it's 3. There might be another number for that.
I couldn't remember my tax code, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but the guide is right there, ready to go.
Okay. I was just presenting that so that
Might be.
Perfect.
some non-taxables.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. I do have a task for you.
What's that?
Everybody who's here, the next one of these, ask 3 people. To ask them to ask 3 people to come to these as well, so they can be informed.
Well, it has grown.
I tried to bring you some Boy Scouts tonight, and the person responsible for them completely forgot that it's.
Don't you think you better let all some?
I know,
I should bring all my senior citizens.
You should. They're nice people.
I know,
It doesn't matter when you have it.
I was gonna comment that I hear senior citizens or
I know,
other
but it's
people
already dark.
say
I'm just saying.
that,
Sessions that we've had.